In episode 150 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, I want to celebrate reaching 150 episodes by doing a recap on the foundation topics that drive how I help my clients lose weight and get healthy and fit. Get a notebook and a pen. The show notes for this episode can be found at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/150. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. All right, so with episode 150, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I want to go back to when I first launched the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, because I think it's good to kind of go back and get back to the basics sometimes, and just really kind of get into the meat of why we're doing what we're doing and what works and what doesn't work. And I can cover a lot of topics on here, and we can kind of get a little overwhelmed, and so sometimes I think it's just good to take that step back and let's say, okay, what really matters here? And so I want to start with the 10 foundation items that I went over during the first 10 weeks of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast. And each week on Monday, I would do a lesson. And those lessons, the 10 of them, the first 10, were all pre-written, pre-ready to go, because they were the items, the things that I work with my clients on as we're going forward. And I wanted to take a few moments to kind of go over them again with you in case you missed those episodes, or again, it's actually been quite a while since we did those. So I wanted to go back through them, and I'm going to do that today. So in episode 1, we talked about commitment. And the reason that this is so important, the reason this is the first foundation item, is this is where it starts. So many people will say, I've decided to do something, or I'm making a resolution to do something, and then they fail. And the question is, well, why did they fail? And sometimes the words will be, well, I couldn't stay motivated, or the words would be, I lack the willpower to say no to something. So if willpower and these other words, resolution and motivation, if those words are failing us, what's the real problem? Why are some people successful and other people are not? Do they just happen to have more willpower? Or are they just wired a way that they stay motivated? And I'll tell you, the short answer to that is no. The reality is that no one is really wired to fail or wired to succeed. The base point of what typically changes this is the nature of the approach to the problem. You can overcome just about anything you set your mind to. You just have to have that mindset that you can do it. And for me, the mindset comes when there's a commitment. And when I say the word commitment, I mean that from the pure way the word means. If I'm going to make a commitment to someone, like getting married, for example, that is a commitment I expect to keep for the rest of my life. This is not just I'm going to go do this for a day or two, a weekend. This is, I'm committing. And in doing so, you have to take that extremely seriously. It has to be something that's broadly emotional and deep, deep, deep within your psyche of how this is going to affect your ongoing behavior. So when we're not in a relationship, we can date whomever we choose. We can go wherever we choose. We don't have to answer to anybody else. When you decide that you're ready to commit to somebody, you've now made the decision that you're going to go down a very different path with no other options. You're with that person, and that's the choice. So when we think about commitment to health and fitness, we really have to break it down to two pieces. And one is, when we're talking about health and fitness, what does that actually look like? What does that mean? So what's your vision of being healthy and fit? And so if you're going to get to some place, you have to know the destination. So if I'm going to come to your house, you have to give me your physical address, or else I would not know which direction to drive. So I have to have some direction. I have to have a path and know where I want to go. And then the second piece of this is the why. Why does it matter to you? That's really where that emotional component of the commitment is going to come from. So for me, it's my wife and family. I want to be healthy and fit for my wife and family. And to me, healthy and fit means that I look younger, act younger, I'm able to do more things, and I'm going to be independent and strong for a longer length of my life. I want to have a better quality of life as I age, and I want to be around for my family. So that's my why, that's my commitment, that's what I'm working towards. And so before you get started on anything, get your direction, know your why, and then put that together as a real commitment. Make this commitment to yourself. I'd encourage you to write it down and actually say it aloud. It's that important. Post it everywhere. You wear a wedding ring when you got married. Wear something for this. Find yourself a bracelet, something. Get a tattoo. I don't know. Just, commit to do something special for yourself. And then the rest is going to fall in place. I promise you that. So the second one I want to talk about, and this came up in episode number 6, is sugar. And, as I'm recording this, we're getting into the launch of the Sugar Challenge for September. And I'm really excited. There have been hundreds of people sign up for this. So this is going to be a really big event for me. And I'm really just encouraged by the number of people that are signing on because sugar is a problem. The average American now eats over 150 pounds of sugar. Think about that, 150 pounds of sugar in a year. That's huge. That's almost half a pound a day. And it's just an incredible amount of sugar. And it's so much more sugar than what you should be eating. The funny thing is, I'm encouraging folks to eat less than 50 grams of sugar per day. The World Health Organization actually recommends that you eat less than that. So this is not even getting us down to what the World Health Organization believes is a healthy level of sugar. This is just something that I feel like is a doable thing. What I've found with my clients is when they cut their sugar down below 50 grams per day, they start losing weight. They start feeling more energetic. They can think more clearly. There's just so many health benefits to lowering your sugar, getting your fasted glucose levels down, getting your A1C, which is the measure of the total blood sugar damage in your blood that you've had for a period of time. So A1C is a good look at how sugar's been metabolized over time, and your resting is just how it is point in time. But sugar is why we're fat. There's no other answer out there that works. That's the math. If you're eating good fats and you're eating enough protein and you're eating just a little bit of sugar, you're going to be a healthier human, just period. So cutting the sugar is how you're going to lose weight, period. Okay, the next one I want to get into are the keys of success. So now, this was in episode 11. And when you put these 3 things together in anything that you're going to do, be it your eating plans, be it your exercise, this is where you're going to see the most improvement. So the first one I want to get into is persistence. Okay, if you're going to do an exercise program, you have to stick with it. It can't be something that you do today and then now you've got DOMS and you can take the next week off. And then, now you've got vacation, so you'll do it the next week. And then you come back in and exercise again and, there's those DOMS again. It's like, I guess I'm just not fit to do this workout. I guess I'm gonna have to go do something else. Well, that's not persistence. Persistence is where you're actually going to get out and stick with something. So you already have your commitment and you have your vision of what you want to look like, what this wants to be. And if it's building strength, well, now you need persistence to continually show up and do the work. The next thing is progression. Many, many times I'll go into the gym and I'll see someone with 3-pound dumbbells, just curling their little arms and up and down, up and down. And I say this jokingly, it's Barbie curls. And I mean that because, Barbie has these thin, skinny little arms. And I think this person thinks that they're going to get skinnier arms doing these little curls, but that's not how this all works. They're not really actually doing much at all with those little 3-pound weights. Slowly work on progression. You might start with 3-pound weights, and that's perfectly fine. But once you can do your full rep range for each set with those weights, it's time to go up to the next set. It's time to add weight if strength building is what you want. If you're trying to do endurance, then you need to be pushing to go a little bit faster or a little bit longer for your work. And so building speed and building the endurance out, if that's what you're after, then you need to make sure that you're slowly building yourself up to bigger runs. And when I'm talking about progression, it has to be measured progression. With running, I would never want to go up more than, say, 10% per week in my mileage. With lifting, you just want to make sure that you're able to maintain good form through those exercises. And typically, just the limits of the strength gains that you can get in your muscles are going to be enough to keep you from adding too much weight over time. But start with a lower weight and then slowly build in those progressions so that each week you're getting stronger, each week you're building more endurance. That's how you're going to see great results over time. And then the third one is patience. Nothing in human history has ever been linear, and nothing in our body will ever be linear. Your weight loss or weight gain, your strength gains or strength losses, those are never going to be completely linear. You're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be times when your energy level is just a little bit low. Maybe your thyroid's not firing the way it needs to be. Maybe you've eaten something and your body's just not reacting to it the way that it needs to. Maybe you have a little bit more inflammation, or maybe you're retaining some extra water. There's 1,000 different chemical things going on at any point in time in your body. So those single point of measures of saying, I want my weight to go down, it went down 2 pounds every week and then it plateaued. Well, that's normal. Okay, so just have the patience to let the persistence and the progression push you through what you're going through. So again, having those three, persistence, progression, and patience, bottling those together and using those with your commitment is how you're going to see long-term success. So the next one I want to get into is sleep. And this was in episode 16. Sleep is probably one of the single most important things behind food for your health and fitness. And here's what I mean by that. You exercise, at best, most people are exercising 10 hours or less per week. Okay? That leaves 166 plus hours for other stuff to be going on. So what you're doing during those other 166 hours, well, you're eating, so you can eat more than you can exercise. It's very, very easy. In an hour working really, really hard, you may burn anywhere from 500 to 800 calories, depending on your body and the intensity with which you're moving. But you can eat thousands of calories the next hour. So what you're eating matters, but how you sleep is actually going to affect all the little hormones in your body that affect how your health and fitness is regulated. Sleep is going to regulate your testosterone. It's going to regulate your cortisol. It's going to regulate your insulin to some level. Sleep is when your body is recovering. It's when it's storing memory. It's when your muscles are recovering. So many things are going on when you sleep that if you're not getting good sleep, you're jeopardizing everything that you've done in your food, and you're jeopardizing everything that you've done in your work. So, yes, work out. Yes, do get some good food and then keep up with that. But make sure that you're getting good quality sleep. When you're getting good quality sleep, you go through these sleep cycles. And it's important for you to get in and out through those deep, deep cycles so that you're getting all of those benefits that the sleep does. All that stuff, that memory and all this stuff with the hormones is all happening when you're in this deep sleep. And a typical person will go through 5 to 6 sleep cycles during the night if they're getting good rest. So again, within about 8 hours of sleep, which is what most people need, yours may vary. You may need a little bit more, you may need a little bit less, but making sure that you're getting good sleep so that you're going through all those sleep cycles. Now, how do you get good sleep? Well, one is you have to have a routine for going to bed. And you need to get away from blue lights, which is computer screens, TVs, phones, tablets. All those artificial lights are damaging your opportunities to create melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us fall asleep. So you want to make sure that you're turning off these things early. Give yourself at least half an hour where you're not dealing with the artificial lights of the TV and the screens before you're ready to go to bed. So what I like to do is I kind of have a routine of I'll go back into the back of the house. I'll start brushing my teeth and flossing and kind of getting the bed ready, get everything ready, maybe get my clothes ready for the next day. I'll do all those little tasks and I'll get away from the screens, away from the light, and I just go do these other things right before bed. And then when I'm in bed, you're going to want it to be a cool, dark place, and you're going to want it to be somewhat noise neutral. And noise neutral, what I mean by that, doesn't have to be entirely quiet unless that's what you prefer. I like having a fan running, some form of white noise, something like that. That helps keep other outside noises from distracting me and waking me up. So I do like to, go noise neutral with the fan. That's my drug of choice. And getting into drugs, a lot of people think, okay, well, I'll take these sleeping pills or I'll have some drinks of alcohol. When you're doing that, you're unconscious, but you're not actually getting good quality sleep. So try to stay away from those things. And if you notice, try changing up. If you do caffeine, like coffee or tea, try changing up when you have that last cup or when you do this. And if you can avoid it at all, that might help. But understand how these things are affecting your body and affecting your sleep. I like to keep a sleep log sometimes and just kind of keep up with how well I slept for a period of time. And there's all kinds of apps and tools now to kind of demonstrate your sleep cycles. Some of them are free, some of them do cost money. But you can wear things. You can there's rings, there's bracelets, there's all kinds of tools now for you to monitor your sleep and see how you're doing with your sleep, and then you can start tweaking to find what works best for you. In the next episode 21, I got into water. And when we're trying to lose weight, I think water is one of those critical elements that we really need to be aware of and make sure that we're getting enough of. And the reason I feel this way is typically your body, okay, your liver is this wonderful, wonderful filter tool that helps your body process toxins. So what the liver will do, so that it doesn't get overburdened because we're swimming in toxins, it will store these toxins in your body fat. So as you built this body fat that you're carrying, all that body fat has these toxins in it. When you start burning that fat, those toxins are released. So now your liver is saying, okay, well, we're not in a fat producing mode, we're in a fat burning mode. I have to deal with it. So it's kind of like, they put it to the side, they procrastinate. It had to procrastinate because it was just no overload. It wanted to just lighten the load on itself. So it pushed this all into the fat. Very easy to do, done. Out of my way, I don't have to worry about it. But now it's come back to the roost. And it's time for the liver to deal with it. So because the liver has to deal with these toxins, we want to give it everything that it needs to efficiently and effectively work and get rid of those toxins. So that one is making sure that we're getting good, clean foods, so we're not adding any kind of burden to our liver while we're losing fat. And then we want to make sure that we're getting plenty of water, because again, the water is going to be that thing that helps wash these toxins out. And in addition to being such a good friend to the liver, water is in your blood. And so blood volume is directly affected. So your energy levels are affected by being fully hydrated. Your joints require moisture in that to stay lubricated and to stay soft and supple. And your skin needs water to stay soft and supple. So if you're not getting enough water, you're shortchanging how you look, you're shortchanging how well your body moves, and you're shortchanging how you feel. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Now, how much is enough water? Well, that's going to vary for each of us. I like to target getting about an ounce of water for every 1/2 pound. For every one half ounce for every pound of body weight. So let's just say right now I weigh about 200 pounds. So I should be getting about 100 ounces of water each day. And that's what I kind of target. I try to get at least 100 ounces of water each day. You might need a little bit less. You may need a little bit more. Now, another way to check this is to look at your urine. Your urine should come out clear. Unless you're taking some B vitamins or some other water-soluble vitamins that you would be peeing out, your urine should be very, very clear each time you pee. If it's a yellow or even a darker yellow, that's a sign that you're in mild dehydration and you need to start taking in more water. So again, make sure you're getting plenty of water, particularly when you're trying to lose weight. The next thing I want to get into was from episode 26 when I started talking about plateaus. And we've gotten into plateaus a little bit earlier when I was talking about patience. And yes, that patience is the number one tool that's going to help you when you get into a plateau. But a plateau is a normal thing. one great thing about the human body is it loves to find balance. And it loves to find balance in just about everything it does because balance is easy to manage. Once you have things balanced, it just makes everything else easier. So the body's always trying to find balance. And if you're losing a good bit of body fat, the body's going to let that happen to a point till it gets to a point where it says, okay, we need some time off. We need to balance this. And it starts doing other chemical things to slow that fat loss, to kind of stabilize your body. And so now you've stabilized your body, but you're not losing the weight. Now, you're mentally, you want to lose the weight, but your body's not giving you what you want. So the patience is going to tell you if you keep up with your persistence and progression, eventually that's going to break. And that's true. If you keep at it, you will. Some people don't want to use patience. They want to try to get past this plateau. And so there are some modalities, some ways to kind of get around plateaus. Bodybuilders will very commonly use a strategy called periodization. And in periodization, that's when the bodybuilder will basically, about every 3 to 6 weeks or so, maybe 8 weeks, will change up their program entirely. What this does is they call it muscle confusion, but basically it just stresses the body in a different way than what you were before and gives you that opportunity to kind of change up and make your body keep benefiting or keep reacting to the work you're doing. So effectively, you're not really giving the body an opportunity to plateau because you're changing it up before you get to the plateau. But if you do find yourself in a plateau, maybe you just change up your programming a little bit. You've lost a good bit of weight, you feel a little bit better, you've been doing a little bit of walking, a little bit of this. Maybe you go try to do some high intensity interval sprints one day. Instead of doing your normal walk, you go out and do a little bit of that. Just see if that extra metabolic kick from a HIIT training will get you past what you're dealing with right now. Maybe you just, you walk a little bit further. Maybe you cut back a little bit more on your sugar. Maybe you look at what your protein intake is and maybe you need to reduce that a little bit. There's a lot of elements that you can look at when you get into a plateau that might work for you to break that plateau. But above all, just don't quit. Don't see that as the end and say, oh, I failed because I've spent three weeks or 3 months at my current weight and just can't break through it. You can break through it. It's just going to take the patience to stick with it, and then it'll happen. The next one was episode 31 when I talked about being a lab rat. I've also had an episode when I talked about what works for them doesn't work for you. And I also had another one where I talked about personalized nutrition, how our body reacts to different foods. So there's 3 episodes there where I've kind of gotten into this concept, and I hope you take that away if you haven't heard those episodes. But here, I'll just kind of reiterate, you are a unique butterfly. You are a unique thing because regardless of your genetics, regardless of everything else, you have environmental exposures. You've eaten different foods over time than anyone else. You've moved in different ways or not moved in different ways. You've had different emotional stresses and different physical stresses. Your sleep patterns have been very different than maybe someone else. And all these other variables make your body distinctly unique. There's thousands and thousands of chemical reactions going on in the human body. And so it's not like just because you cut this one thing or you count your calories or you do a particular exercise and your friend's getting stronger and you're not, that's not a reflection of you as a human being. It just means that you have to find the path that works for you. And the way you do that is through self-experimentation. So I know that I can get really, really strong on a lift up into a point, and then it's just going to level out and plateau. And I have to experiment to say, what is the defining part of why I get to that sticking point? Why do I have that particular sticking point? And what changes can I put into my program that will push me past my particular sticking point? So that's just an experimentation. And again, it might not be what someone else is doing just because it's working for them, but it's worth trying and it's worth researching and just talking to trainers, talk to me about incorporating something just a little bit more unique and see what it does for your training. I had a client on not long ago, And we talked about how I encouraged her to do front squats to help improve the quality of her squatting. And I knew if she did the front squats properly, that this was going to give her better form and structure so that when she did her back squats, she could get stronger and stronger. And that's in fact what happens. So it was an experiment. I know for most people that the front squat is going to improve your back squat, but a lot of people struggle with it because they're like, I can't do nearly as much weight on the front squat, and I don't feel like I'm really working the muscles. But they are, and they're changing the dynamics of how they do a lift, and that neuromuscular connection helps them get past that sticking point on their squat. So again, do self-experimentation. Take the time to educate yourself on the human body and on your body. And once you have done that, then you know what's working. You can keep tweaking, keep refining, and be a better you tomorrow. In the next episode 36, I got into fitness modalities. Now, there are several fitness modalities that you can put into your programming, but this has to go back all the way back to the first one where I talked about the commitment, and you talked about what your vision was. You understood what you wanted in your vision. Now, I told you my vision had me looking younger and being stronger and being independent. So some things that matter for me are strength, endurance, and just basically having a good body weight. And so those are the things that I've kind of put on mine. And body weight for me, the way that's going to happen is with my food, with my sleep, with my stress. If I can get those three things in line, I don't even have to worry about the exercise even being a part of my body weight management. But the ones that do fall under the fitness modalities are strength and endurance. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few of the fitness modalities that I do think are very, very important, and that I really stress in my lifting and in my training because it's what I want for me. Now, there are others, and I'll get into some of those that you can consider. So the first one is strength. Okay, and I think everybody should be involved in strength training at some level. Early on, it's just body weight, but over time, you'll be able to add weights. People can progress to the machines, they can progress to free weights. I just say what you're doing, know why you're doing it, and have a plan for what it's going to do for your body. And if you want to get stronger, then you're going to need to go up that progression. You need to get to those free weights, and you need to start learning good form, and you will get stronger. Related to strength is muscle mass. And I did an episode on strength and muscle mass not too long ago. But generally, mass just means that you're adding more muscle. And that's important for most of us as we age because sarcopenia is a thing that is basically wasting of muscles that occurs at about 1% per year as we age. So if we're not doing some resistance exercise, which the strength training does, but if we're not doing resistance training, then we're going to suffer from sarcopenia, and we could lose upwards of 30% or more of our body fat, of our lean muscle mass, or our muscles, by the time we reach our 70s. And that's a horrible, horrible state to be in when you don't have the strength to do the basic things that you need. And so, again, I think maintaining your strength, maintaining your muscle mass are both very important modalities. The next one is mobility, and that's the ability for your body to move through a full range of motion. We do so much repetitive stuff, sitting at a desk and typing on a machine and looking at our phones and all that. People are really, really messing up their mobility. And if you don't work on your mobility, if you don't work on getting those muscles to move through the full range of motion, eventually that's going to hobble you. And I know you've seen kind of older people that struggle to walk, and they're just literally just doing these little shuffle steps, the old man walk or old woman walk. And the reason is they don't have the mobility and the leg speed to do the things that they want to do. They can't walk as fast as they maybe would like because they've let those things go. So mobility is very, very important. The next one is endurance. And just that's your capacity to keep going. That's important because if you want to hang out with the young kids when they're going to the zoo and doing the things with your grandchildren and maybe great-grandchildren, you're going to have the endurance to be able to stick up with them, or you're going to be that one in the scooter because you just couldn't keep up with kids, or sitting on the bench missing out. And I wouldn't want that for anyone. So I think working on your endurance and making sure you have a good base for that. And I've told a story, or one of the reasons I really kind of started this whole thing was I found myself having to ask to sub out in a volleyball game. And it was it was so defeating because I loved playing sand volleyball, but for one reason or another, my endurance had gone down to such a state that I was not able to keep up with the people that were playing, and really just wore out and said, okay, I got to sit down. That's a horrible feeling. It was for me to have to walk off that volleyball court while people were still playing. I like to be there before the game starts, and I want to be there when the game's over, begging people to keep playing. But that wasn't the case that day. I'm working towards making sure that I never have to sub out again. So endurance is another one. And then some other ones to consider that I think are important is balance, which obviously just making sure that you have a good base, you feel good and balanced. Agility, which is kind of just the ability to move around well. Speed, which again, relates to some of the other elements, but and then there's some other that are just generally sports specific or functional specific that you may want to work on. If there's a game, or particularly like you like to play golf or some other things like that, then there may be a couple other modalities that you would want to focus on just to make sure that you can keep a good golf game or whatnot. So hand-eye coordination, things like that. But those are the base modalities. And then the following week, in episode number 41, I got into resistance training. And again, the resistance training really does kind of address kind of three core areas of this, because resistance training can address strength, it can address muscle mass, or it could address muscle endurance. And so you can use resistance training to train all three of those. You can't necessarily do it all at the same time, although there is a little overlap between the endurance and the muscle mass, and a little bit of overlap between the strength and the muscle mass. So if you're varying your reps and your rep speeds, the number of reps you do in a set and the number of and the speed with which you're doing reps, you can in fact, make sure that you're doing workouts that will help you in all of those areas. But I think it's extremely important, and we talked about sarcopenia a little bit, but I do think it's extremely important for you to make sure that resistance exercise is a part of it, because it's going to help with the sarcopenia. It's going to help you maintain strong bones. This is not the calcium that's the problem for the bones. It really is the stresses and strains that you put those bones under. We're sitting, we're laying, we're not, putting our body under that kind of stress. There's no reason for us to have big, strong bones. The bones just say, hey, he's not using me. She's not using me. I may as well just go away because they don't need me. And, that's what happens. So making sure that you're getting good resistance training in will help you build better bones, build better muscles, and look and feel a whole lot better. Plus, if you're doing heavy lifting, particularly compound movements like the squat and the deadlift, you're going to get a little surge of testosterone. And testosterone for men and for women is this huge energy boost, this huge hormone boost that really will make you feel better, a whole lot better. And it'll improve your libido, it'll improve your overall mood, and it'll improve the way you just basically carry yourself and look. So again, resistance training. Even if you don't want to, just make yourself do it, because I'm pretty sure when you got into what your vision was, it needs some resistance training for you to meet that vision of health and fitness. And then the final one I did on episode 46 was lifestyle. And I think so many people will say, oh, I'm going on a diet. Have you said that? Okay, I'm going on a diet. What does that mean? That means that there's a temporary period of time that I'm going to limit myself or restrict myself from having the things that I would normally have. And then what do you do when the diet's over? Well, you go back to your old way of doing things. And what happens? Your body recovers all that fat you lost. Why? Because it's the lifestyle that matters. It's not a period of time. You really have to think of health and fitness as a continuum. You can continually get better. And I strongly believe this, as long as a human being has a breath left in them, they can be a better human. They can do something to improve their health every second you're alive. So if you think of health and fitness as a destination, it's not. Health and fitness is a state of being. And a state of being is fleeting unless you're doing things to keep that state of living. So I'll give you a perfect example. Most people have jobs, and the jobs are intended to make money, and each month or week or however they get paid, and then they pay the bills. So If having a roof over your head requires you to have a job, which for most of us it does, then you see paying the mortgage or paying the rent as a state of being. Every month the rent's due. Therefore I work and then I pay the rent. So this is really not much different than that. If you want health and fitness, you have to work, and then it pays you back by giving you the health and fitness results for the work you did. If you don't do the work, you won't see the results. So if you're not paying attention to your food, you're not paying attention to your sleep, you're not paying attention to your stress, you're not exercising, you cannot expect to maintain good health. It will go away. And you're going to have to make these investments. You're going to have to look at lifestyle as a means of health and fitness, and that it's a state of being and not a destination. And each and every day, you need to be making investments in that health and fitness. So it's, meditating, it's getting good food, it's trying to make sure you sleep well, and it's making sure that you get the appropriate exercise to keep your body healthy and fit. And if you're not willing to make those investments, then I'm going to send you all the way back to episode number 1, and let's get back to the why and the vision, and let's make a commitment, because it all wraps around itself. When you made a commitment to your spouse, it wasn't let's test this out for 3 weeks and see how it goes. And if I get what I want, then I'll stick with it. If I don't, I'll go back to my old lifestyle. That's not how that works. And that's not really how this should work. Although, again, when you're making a commitment to yourself, the only person you're cheating if you're not doing these things, the only person that's getting hurt if you're not living this lifestyle right now is yourself and the people that love you. So again, I'd like to go back over these just real quick. You have to make the commitment. You need to reduce your sugar, because the amount of sugar you take in is going to be reflected in body fat. You have to follow the 3 keys to success, which is persistence, progression, and patience. You need to make sure that you're getting good sleep. You need to make sure that you're taking in plenty of water, staying hydrated. You will face plateaus. You can either have a strategy to bust through that plateau or just have the patience to know what you're doing is going to work eventually. You need to be your own lab rat. Don't look at the results of others and compare yourself to them. Look at what works for you and keep applying that. Keep tweaking and working on what works for you. And that's how you're going to win the long game. Look at all the fitness modalities and how they relate to what you want out of health and fitness. And then make sure that you're training those modalities to the maximum amount to get where you want to go. And you must, again, make sure that resistance training is in there, because I don't believe there's a vision of fitness and health that anyone could have that wouldn't require some level of resistance training. And then finally, like I said, this has to be a lifestyle change. You have to be in this for the long time. Fitness and health is a state of being. It's not a destination. You don't just get there and stay there. You have to earn it every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll talk to you soon. If you received value from this episode, would you take the time to share it? Just share the link, 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/150. I really appreciate it. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we'll talk to Brad Beer and discuss his book, You Can Run Pain Free. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.